This is Tim with the Attitude for Gratitude podcast, held down here at 2520 North 2nd Street, a place called We'll Work for Recovery. Come on down and check us out. We have meetings going on 7 days a week. We have Sunday Fun Day, which is happening right now. We got the football game on the big screen. We got some marvelous food being grilled up out back. I think they're doing hot ham and cheeses on the Blackstone with some tomato soup. It's a great place to come check out. Like I said, it's a resource center. We've got a gym here. We have a computer room out back. We've got a podcast studio to boot and multiple meeting rooms. This place is somewhere that I came to find my recovery, gave me my footing in life, and it can do the same for you. You deserve your happiness, so come on down and check us out. Again, We'll Work for Recovery, 2520 North 2nd Street. Welcome back, everybody, to the Attitude for Gratitude podcast. So, we're going to give this another go, boys and girls. Our good friend Sarah, the audio queen, she was not able to make it, and that's okay. She still might walk through them doors, fingers crossed. But we're going to try what we can this week, and hopefully you guys are hearing my voice right now. Don't know. Going to find out here shortly. And I believe you guys are hearing it because I'm hearing it in my headphones. So I'm going to take this out and rely on you guys to tell me when we cut out. So tonight, I've got Rick B here, who does the 4-step workshop at 2218 on Wednesdays at 6:30. But we're going to have him tell you more about it. Here's a little something. Now video tonight's going to be a little different because our understanding of what was going on before with audio had to do with our video because of the webcam I bought, which will be getting a new webcam. It's progress, not perfection. We've learned about that out there in the world. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on a speaker for audience outside this podcast studio because we are down here at We'll Work for Recovery. And we encourage anyone that is out there to come check us out. If you've never been to We'll Work for Recovery, it's something that's it's a pretty amazing place. It's a little different than what you're used to. It's not your regular type AA clubs. It's more of a it's a recovery center. And again, if you haven't been here, come check us out. I'm going to put the address up here for you guys. It's right off Washington. It's about 1.5 miles away from where the other center was, 4240 Washington. There it is on the bottom of your screen. As always, you know, if you're out there tonight struggling or having a tough time with life or what have you, like I tell you guys all the time, like you're worth this life of recovery. You hear us talk about it every week on this show. And if no one's told you, we'll start the show off with letting you know you're loved, you're worthy, you're worth this life. Give it a whirl, fight for yourself, fight for your recovery, and get after it. Again, down here, it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sundays. There is a 6:30 structured AA meeting that takes place here at We'll Work for Recovery. Other than that, Wednesdays, there is a 5 p.m. men's meeting and a 5 p.m. women's meeting. And every night of the week, there's a 7 p.m. meeting down here as well. And those are all recovery meetings. But we do have a lot of things going on. Next week, we're having the Free For All Friday. Like I said, we're working on getting this camera, this whole thing situated. I'm still working on her. But this next Friday, we've got the Free For All Friday where it's going to be formatted kind of like we had it at the last location. And we're going to hear from tons of people coming from after the 7 o'clock meeting. And then beginning of next month, we have Paul, Carolyn, and Chuck back on the show. We're going to give that a whirl, see how that goes. We're going to try our best. And then I haven't coordinated with Rick yet about the next month, but he'll be back next month and we'll go over step 2 and tradition 2, like we're going to do tonight with step 1 and tradition 1. All right. Sound is still there, which is good. Tonight, we're going to hop into it. And this is the plan was once a month, we're going to have Rick from the 4-step workshop hop on air, and we're going to go over step 1, tradition 1. And each month, we're going to coincide with that month. So next month we'll be doing step 2 and tradition 2. And we're going from what he's gathered from it. Remember, you take what you can get out of what you hear. And if you have questions, pop in on the comments. If you have any comments, put them up there. If there's something you want me to ask him, definitely. He encourages questions, correct?
Sure.
Yes. That was a big yes. So please do. Any questions you have about anything we're going over or anything you want us to talk about, post some questions and I'll do my best to get to them. This is going to be a little different for me because I'm used to having the camera not on me the whole time here. And I'm going to do my best to maybe figure out how to get this camera off me and on him. But while he's talking, maybe I'll fart around with that. So bear with the whole camera. We've come to find out if it's not the audio, it's the camera. So it's a work in progress, kind of like me. So let's just hop on into it. And welcome back to the show, Rick.
Thanks, Tim.
Who are you again? I kind of already stole that thunder, huh?
What's that?
I said, who are you? I already stole that thunder.
Oh, sure. My name's Rick. I'm an alcoholic.
Welcome to the show, Rick. All right.
Also a drug addict.
Perfect.
I wouldn't tell you that if I was in an AA meeting. I don't need the conflict and the controversy around it.
Oh, also, I forgot to tell you, Rick, we're kind of like, we're zoo. We're at the zoo. We are zoo animals here. Come on in, Ray. Are you okay if Ray sits in with us?
Yeah.
Do you know Ray?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, we're kind of like at the zoo. I forget to tell people. Ray, you want to sit in with us tonight? We're going to do step 1 and tradition 1. Okay. All right. Pipe on in whenever you want. Sit here or there. That way you two can kind of keep things going a little bit. Because like I was telling him, we have great audio tonight, but my camera's not working. I mean, my camera on my laptop's working, but I was gonna say, try to scoot to the mic. You're good there, but try to scoot to the mic if you can. I got new arms, whatever. Yeah. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Ray, alcoholic.
Oh, no. There, do it again.
I'm Ray, alcoholic.
Welcome back to the show, Ray. All right. We're getting this thing going. All right. We almost got a little thing going here. Rick's here to talk about Rick. Again, how about you? We start with what do you do on Wednesday nights at 2218 again?
Well, there's a workshop, a 4-step workshop at 6:30 in the auditorium. So if you're interested in taking a look at the inventory process as laid out in the big book, we don't utilize any other process. We're not doing other people's stuff like Joe and Charlie and that sort of thing. We're staying just strictly with the big book, as close as we can possibly do that. So I'm a stickler on keeping things clean to the book. I really am. I don't like deviating from that process. There's a lot of temptation to make improvements on this. You know, my buddy Bob, Tim, I think was going to put up a card.
I did at the beginning and I will again.
Yeah, with our, it's a workshop card with Bob J. was a guy that I did that workshop with for 25 years down at the club, and he died a few years back. But Bob and I were adamant about trying to keep this clean to what the big book is. And I used to ask Bob to tell a story because he was a musician and he did a music score for the Guthrie Theater. And Bob was a principal trombonist for Woody Herman Band back in the 50s. That would have been like being in the Beatles, and he was traveling all over the world, seriously, in the big band stuff. Well, Bob was a very talented guy, and he had written a music score for the Guthrie Theater, and I'd ask him to tell his story because it illustrates what we're trying to do with the inventory process. He said they had the music on stage, the play was going, and he was up in the control room with the director producer. And he says to Bob, I'm going out to Connecticut for 6 weeks. I'll be back. Bob says, well, why do you have to come back? You got the play on stage, the music's going. He says to take out the improvements that were made when I was gone. You understand?
Mhm.
Each actor starts improving his role in the play. And pretty soon it doesn't look anything like it was supposed to be because they like to upstage each other on the set. See, well, some of this has happened around our fellowship by well-meaning people, but they've made improvements on this process of inventory. And I have yet to see one where it was helpful. It's always been a drag on it, where it distorted it, changed it.
I think
And-
I asked you this before, not cutting you off. And this was something we had a question come in. Is this someone trying to fix something that's not broke?
Of course. But I got to tell you, it's well-meaning.
Okay.
Believe me, these are good AA people. They're well-meaning, but there's a temptation to want to make it better. See, I don't have that. I really do not have
Right.
that. I have no interest in trying to do that and trying to add my spin on it. Now, I share my stories and my illustrations, which I'll do tonight, about my experience with the first step and the first tradition and what my experiences have been. But I've been a member of 2218 since 1988. So I've been down there. I got sobered up September 4th of 87, and I've never even considered going back.
This is where we go.
What's that?
Oh, you don't have your headphones in. I put an audience background clapping.
Oh, you did?
Oh, you told your clean time, so we did this.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, sound effects. I'm very
Yeah,
proud of them.
great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, what I want to do tonight and what I've been doing, we've done these podcasts for a couple of years.
Yeah, about 2 years.
And
now.
gone through the steps, and we'll just tell some stories and see where this goes, and from basically my experience of my own life. And Tim and Ray
Yeah.
can jump in here and do whatever they like. So
So what is the first? We'll start with step one. What is the first step? If people don't know, what is that?
okay, all right.
And you're opening a book. I believe
I'm,
it's called
I'm
the
opening
12
up a 12 and 12,
Yeah.
and I'm going to read it.
All right.
It says, step one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Now, all of my life, I was an atheist until I got sober, and it didn't change automatically.
Right.
Okay. But I was a militant atheist. I was raised in a family my dad was a communist. His friend Joe Stern ran a little lumber yard, and these guys were in their 40s when I was born. My dad was 41 years old.
Wow.
He and Joe were labor organizers, and these were heavyweights. These guys were out on street corners talking back in the 40s and the 50s and my dad was going over to the Soviet Union back in the 60s and the 70s.
Oh, he's a real communist.
Oh, absolutely. No, really. I mean, these guys.
Oh.
And I sat in that lumber truck with Joe from the time I was about 12 years old on, and I got my communist and my atheist training. And if you're a communist, you're going to be an atheist. That's just part of the game. Okay. And I like the radicalness of it. There was a lot of this sort of conversation going on in the 60s. I'm a product of the 50s and 60s, and so I picked up a lot of stuff from well-meaning people, but very radical ideas. And I was in a lot of conflict throughout my life because of it, because the country is coming out of World War II in the 50s.
Mhm.
There's a push toward capitalism in a major way. The United States was literally rebuilding the world through the Marshall Plan. There was a lot of things going on. Our country was really cooking after World War II. And everybody's talking about capitalism and excitement around, just look at the music from the 50s and the 60s. Tremendous.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Look at the cars from the 50s and the 60s. It was tremendous. We weren't interested in wind resistance. We were interested in style.
Right.
There was a style there. That's what was really important.
People are attracted to that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
So there was the excitement around the music, around the vehicles. The girls were wearing mini skirts and hot pants. I mean, what more could a young guy growing up in the 60s want? It was exciting. It was an exciting time. And I was being raised by my sister Ann, who's 6 years older than I am. My mother was working nights. My dad was drunk most of the time when I was young. And he was working for the post office, sorting mail between Chicago and Minneapolis. So he'd be gone for a week and then home for a week. He was drunk all the time when he was home. I didn't want much to do with him. I was really primarily raised by my sister, 6 years older. And Joe Stern kind of took me under his wing because my dad was trying to get sober, you know.
Right.
So I worked for Joe at that lumber yard, and I sat there and he was a smart, dedicated Jewish Russian communist.
Wow. That sounds confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and he, not that everything he said was wrong. There was a lot of things that were right, but I grew up with this conflict when I'd go out to parties with my buddies and everybody's talking about, they're excited about going to work and buying cars, and here I come with all this negative crap, you know, around capitalism and corporations and things like that. And it was, I was in conflict constantly. And every once in a while, somebody would say something like, we'd be standing around drinking, you know, teenage years. And somebody would say, hey, what do you mean by that? Where'd you get that? You know, and they'd question something I was spewing. Okay. And of course, I didn't have an answer because I didn't formulate the idea.
Okay.
So a pretty good indication you're brainwashed. Do you get upset when somebody challenges what you're saying?
Well, yeah.
Why? Because I didn't formulate it. I don't have an answer. And it's embarrassing when somebody pulls your pants down in front of a group of people because you're talking some stuff that's not mainstream. Okay. So this kind of stuff would happen once in a while. But I noticed as I got sober and as I got older, that that's really what happens with brainwashing. No, it doesn't happen without your permission. Okay. The brainwashing.
Mhm.
I like the radicalness of the ideas. I like to be spewing things, talking stuff that other people didn't understand, you know. But I got to tell you, it's when I got sober, I had to deal with that mind that was full of this kind of stuff and take a look at what was going on. And that was the beginning, I suppose, of the inventory for me. So when I got sober, you know, it took a lot because of my atheism. It took a lot for me to get sober. Why? Because I couldn't admit I couldn't solve my problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could not admit that I could not solve and fix things because that's what you do when you're an atheist. When good things happened, I took the credit. When bad things happened, I gave it to Ray or Tim
Right. Yeah.
or somebody else. See, but I didn't want it when it was bad, but I was quick to take the credit. See,
Okay.
when it was something that I liked or I felt was my advantage. So when I was using, I'm fixing things. I'm solving problems. And believe me, I was working on things, man. I was actively trying to get what I wanted from life. I really believed that that's just the way it was. You know, you go out and you get from life what you want. And that's what I was doing. So it's not easy to get to a place where you can admit that you're powerless and that you can't solve your problems when you got this going on. But if you do it with enough enthusiasm, you'll get to a bottom.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's exactly what I was doing. Full speed ahead, trying to get what I wanted. Pam and I came together in my early 20s. We had a couple of kids that were 4 and 6 years old when I got sober. And that relationship was an absolute disaster for her, you know?
Yep.
Pam is your first wife.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
She's the mother of my children. And, you know, we had a lot of problems. We were drinking. It was a drinking relationship from the start. You know, the first date that we had was a gallon of Paisano wine, you know, and it didn't get any better after that. And she was kind of mouthy when she'd drink, and she was trouble. I mean, she really was trouble. So good looking, that didn't help matters any.
Yeah.
We'd be out at the bars and there were always guys around her, and it was just an insecure deal for me with her because she was just a hassle. But you know, alcohol just really didn't work well for me because I became physically addicted to booze. And I was having a lot of problems in my early 20s with withdrawal from alcohol.
In
My-
your early 20s.
In my early
Okay.
20s. See, and I didn't sober up till I was 35 from everything.
Right.
Okay. But through my 20s, I was having a lot of problems physically with the booze. And I literally could not continue to drink. There came a point where I was in withdrawal a lot and I was absolutely just miserable all the time. But I wasn't at a bottom emotionally with the way I was living. I couldn't admit that I couldn't solve my problems yet. See?
Okay.
So I found something out. Some of you, this may help and it may hurt some of you if you want to take this
And we
advice.
speak from honesty.
Here,
Okay.
I'll tell you how you can get over alcohol withdrawal. Crystal methamphetamines. Okay. Yeah.
I love that one.
Yeah. The next 7 years was an absolute nightmare for me and my family. And I can tell you that I was going downhill at about 100 miles an hour. I was able to speed that up to about 250 miles an hour. And it was an absolute shit show,
Yeah, I
to
can
say
imagine.
the least. Okay. And of course, I do everything with enthusiasm, and I was working a lot. I was trying to build my empire. I had kind of gone away from the communist idea. Now I'm going to be a big shot and make a lot of money, have a big house and this sort of thing. This was not on Pam's radar. She wasn't interested in that. She just wanted a normal person, normal guy to have a family, kids, this sort of thing. And that's not what she got with me. So here I'm pushing, trying to build an empire, go from one house to the next, fix this house up, make some money on it. We're living in construction all the time. See, she doesn't want that, you know. And then we move to the next house because you got to get the bigger house, and then you got to get the next house, the bigger house. And I did that for a period of time until it all started to cave in on me. And I had traded some properties or a property for a business called Chicago Supply Company, antique plumbing fixtures. And this is around early 1980s. And I made a good deal. I traded, you see, the house that I was living in, this duplex that I had built a bunch of equity into it, and I had worked on it, fixed it all up and refinanced it. And I had some money and I had bought another property, and I was doing that stuff besides working a little bit in the trades. And I ended up with my house going into foreclosure, the one I was living in. And I had just refinanced it, and I had my brother signed on to the mortgage because he helped me qualify for the loan.
All right.
As far as income. My brother Bill was 9 years older than I am. And over a short period of time, the economy really turned back in the early 80s. And you couldn't get a mortgage. I mean, mortgage rates went up to like 15, 18%.
15, yeah.
You couldn't sell a property. It was just an absolute nightmare. And I started to lose rents because people were losing their jobs. And I had this triplex, and I lost 6 months rent on the first floor of this triplex that I had. And it ended up going into foreclosure. And I spent the next 3 years trying to keep it out of foreclosure. See, so I had come across a piece of property. There was an upholsterer over on 33rd and Cedar Avenue named Johnny and Sons. He was a little old man, and he kind of wanted out of his property, but here again, he faced the same thing. He couldn't sell the house. He couldn't sell his property and get his money. So I'm talking to him. I used to have him upholster stuff for me because I'd find old furniture that was classic stuff and I'd have it upholstered and I'd resell. I was buying and selling anything I get my hands on. Well, I went in, I'm talking to Johnny one day and he wants to get out of the place. And I said, I tell you what, I'll buy your place on a contract for deed. I said, I'll give you 10% down. He wanted like 30-some thousand dollars for it. I'll give you 10% down. It was about $3,000. And then we'll start a contract for a deed. And then I'll make payments and I'll fix this place up and then resell it. And I'll bail out the house I'm losing because I'm behind on mortgage payments. You see, when you're behind on mortgage payments, the mortgage company won't accept anything but the whole back, what you owe. They won't take a partial because then it would start the refinance or the foreclosure over again. So I got to come up with a chunk of money. So I get the contract for deed going, and I got to come up with. I gave him $1,500 down. I got to come up with another $1,500 in a month. So now I got to get some money somewhere, and I don't have it. See, I'm doing all this stuff kind of on my own.
Juggling.
Yeah. So anyway, I know this is kind of involved, but it's important to my whole situation. So anyway, I get the I get the contract going. Now I'm looking for the other $1,500, and I happen to be working in the trades as a plumber, and I had garages full of old toilets and things that I was selling to people. And, when I could make a sale, somebody needed a toilet. And back then there was a lot of, antique stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to be over at this guy's store because he had a parts store called Chicago Supply Company. And there was a guy named Merle who owned it. And he had bought the inventory from the north side from over not far from here. He had there was a fire in the at the plumbing hole at the antique plumbing fixture store. So anyway, he moved it downtown where Salwadi restaurant is on Washington Avenue there. He had it in the basement there. And I was over just looking for some parts for some toilets and stuff. And I started talking to Merle, and I said, and Merle had just moved it in there. Now he's a contractor, and he also is trying to deal with this store. He's a plumbing contractor. Now he's got his kids helping him, and it's a nightmare to move all this stuff. You can't believe what it takes to move in one direction. It's 10,000 square feet of Looney Tunes, everything's out of boxes. It's fragile. You scratch it up, you crack it, it's junk then, right. So he'd been moving this stuff in, and I see dumpsters outside of of where the Salwadi restaurant, the restaurant wasn't in there yet. And I see him throwing stuff away that I can sell. And I start talking to him, and I said, look, Merle, what the hell are you doing? You're throwing stuff away I can sell. He says, well, don't drag it out. Well, you can't drag it. It's already broken by the time it's in the dumpster, Mm-hmm. So we start to talk, and he says, look, I'm so frustrated I moved this stuff that I just want to get out of this business because I can't do my service business and this store at the same time. It's become a real nightmare for me. I says, well, what do you want? I'm kind of interested in the salvage business. There's a lot of money in this. A guy comes in off the street and sells you a house radiator, and each section of a house radiator, you count the sections, and you buy them for about $2 a section, and you sell them for 10 to 20 a section. So, the markup's tremendous on this stuff. So I'm interested in this business, so He says, well, I tell you what, if you want to buy this, maybe we can work a deal. And I says, well, I got this house. I tell him about this house I got that's going to bail out my house. And I got $1,500 earnest money down. I got to come up with another 1,500. He says, well, I tell you what, maybe we can go into a partnership. I'll pay your other 1,500. We'll get the contract going, and we'll go in there and we'll fix it up, and I'll pull the permits and we'll do the work together. I'll lay some linoleum. He'll add a bathroom on the second floor. We'll duplex this little house, and great. And then I'm gonna sell it to Merle. After it's all fixed up, I'm gonna sell it to Merle. He says, so we did. We went together on this thing, got it all fixed up, got it ready I'm gonna sell it to him for 55 grand. Now I paid 25 or 30 grand for it. I can't remember what it was. And we're going to sell it to him for 55 grand. And he's going to place a mortgage. I'm going to get the money for the difference between 30 grand and 55 grand, 25 grand. I'm going to give that to him for the store and all the inventory. And he's going to give me the house. Now, what could go wrong with this? I have a $1,500 investment. I'm going to get a house that's fixed up with a mortgage on it, because you could assume mortgages back then. And all I got is $1,500 involved in this thing. Whoa, what a great deal for me.
Win-win almost.
Yeah. Except his financing fell through. And then the game starts. He's trying to steal the property from me. I'd already been put in control of the store. I was running the store. I assumed his lease where it was being operated. And now we're fighting with each other. And I'm trying to deal with that and trying to deal with my house. And everything's caving in on me. And I'm using crystal meth to stay awake and try and deal with all this stuff. And it's getting worse and worse. There are so many stories I won't bore you with, but there's a reason for all this conversation, because this is how you get to a bottom.
Right. And that's what we're talking about is Rick's step one. We're talking about where you got to, right?
Yeah.
All right. And I know we had a lot of people. I'm sorry about everyone who received this show halfway through his share, but we're talking about step one tonight and tradition one, and he's telling you about his story and how it's relating to where he found his step one.
Yeah. So this atheist is trying to control everything and keep all the balls in the air, and it's caving in on me. And my relationship with Pam is caving in. We got trouble. I'm not home. I'm working all the time. I moved that store out of that location because I got in trouble with the landlord, couldn't pay the rent. And I moved that thing 2 more times after that. And I can tell you that I wasn't home much, and my life was caving in at 100 miles an hour
You've shared some stories on the show back at 2218 about some incidences that occurred while you were during that time.
Oh, yeah.
And how people understand about the step one that's about to show up.
Yeah. So anyway, now I'm trying to operate all this stuff. And I'm trying to hold everything together, and everything's falling apart. And I can't. Every time I solve a problem, it seems to get worse.
Right.
And finally, Pam has just had it. We got kids, they're 3 and 5 years old during this time. And she is not built for this world. I believe me.
That life.
And I'm involved with guys. There are guys trafficking heroin from Mexico. Brown tar, they called it.
Yep.
This is back 1980s, early 80s. Cocaine and speed from the West Coast. They were freebasing. This is before crack. And I'm dealing the speed. So now I got heroin addicts, cocaine addicts, and speed freaks hanging around my store.
Yeah.
And what comes with that is the pimps and the pornography and the prostitution.
All
and
the lowlights.
Now it's all in my place. Okay. And these guys are involved in things that are beyond my understanding. Okay. And I'm way over my head on this one. Well, finally, our phones are tapped. This is before cell phones and stuff, you could hear the FBI there was a lab in Kentucky in 1985 that blew up. And they were trying to tie it to organized crime in the Twin Cities here. A guy named Jimmy Box, I think, was involved with that. Everybody went to jail over this thing. Okay. And some of these guys were involved in my store and I didn't know it. See, so they were watching us. The BCA was watching us.
Long arm of the law.
Oh, I could see them. They were watching everything we were doing, man, you know, and all kinds of bizarre things would happen, you know.
And you got a wife with 2 young kids at home. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not good. And you know, just to give you a quick example, I'm laying out, you could park up in front of the door. This is on 11th and 3rd Avenue now, downtown Minneapolis. There's a Holiday Inn Express there now, but there was a different building there. And I was laying underneath my dash trying to fix something. It's about 2 a.m. and I got my legs hanging out and I'm exhausted from the speed. See, got all the lights on in my store, huge store. There's all the lights and stuff are on, doors wide open in summertime. Yeah. And all of a sudden I feel somebody grab my legs and yank me out of the car. And it's the cops. There's like 5 squad cars there. And they took and put me in the back of one of the squad cars, handcuffed me, and all the cops went into my store. And about 15 minutes later, they came out and they took the handcuffs off of me and they left. And I thought, what the hell was that? This is the kind of stuff that was happening around me. And I have no idea what that was. I don't know what they were looking for.
Still never found out.
Don't know. So finally, Pam has had enough of this stuff. And she says, I can't take this anymore. She got sober and she's about 2.5 months sober. And she says, you gotta either get sober or go. I can't do this anymore. And I'd lost the house we were living in. You know, I lost my $50,000 equity back in the early 80s. It was a lot of money.
Yeah, $500,000 today.
Yeah, it was a lot of money. And my life was just devastated by all of this stuff, you know. You know, I ended up giving Merle that house and he gave me the store and that's how I ended up with the store. And we parted ways and that was the way that went. But anyway, so I go to an outpatient treatment program at 1800 Chicago to get my family back. Now I'm not going there to get sober. I just want my stuff back. Okay. I want the trouble to stop. I want my money back. I want my house back. I want my whatever I've lost. See, I'm losing everything as I'm going. And I had no interest in stopping using. I really thought because she said, you got to get help. I thought, well, I'll just go to this outpatient treatment program and I'm not going to stop using. And somehow I thought maybe that would pacify her and everything would be okay. Well,
so that's not how it works?
Well, I got a bright idea because you see, the guys I was hanging around with needed new identities. We used to make up fake IDs. Okay. I had birth certificates, blanks, and I had an impression stamp that I could stamp it. Okay. And you could take and put in a new name and go over to the highway department and get a driver's license in that name. So I was selling identities back then because these guys needed new names. Okay. The stuff they were involved with. So, but I got a bright idea because I'm going to 1800 Chicago for a couple days in this outpatient treatment program.
Right across the street from that.
And right across the street is the Social Security office. See? And I thought, well, maybe I could go in there and plant some records in their files, get Social Security cards to go with these birth certificates. Now you got something if you can make that work. So I leave the treatment center. I'm speeding. I'm not drunk, you know, so I don't look drunk, you know. And I go over to the Social Security office like 4 p.m. And I walk in the bathroom and there's an access panel in the ceiling and I climb up into the ceiling and wait for them to close. Now I was doing business with the Social Security office as Chicago Supply Company. I was buying their desks. They were remodeling their office.
So you're doing legitimate business with them.
Yeah. I was going to buy all their stuff. And that's kind of how I got all these ideas going was from my interaction with them. And they just happened to be across the street from the treatment center. So now I'm up in the ceiling and I'm waiting for them to close and I come down and I start tearing up the office and, you know, and I'm at a point where I'm just mentally ill, guys. There's nothing reasonable about anything I'm doing. Everything that I do is turning to shit. Everything. So I come down, I'm gathering up. They had TVs and VCRs on stands. That's how long ago this was, okay? I had about 5, 6 of those. I gathered them up, put them in the middle of the floor. I'm going to steal all this stuff.
Ice of a century.
I'm digging through their desks. Their desks are all torn up. The building's torn up. And I'm going through all their stuff. And I look up, it's like 5 o'clock in the morning. I haven't done anything that I went in there to do.
Speed.
Lost in the adventure of the insanity.
Insanity.
It's called tweaking.
Yep.
Okay. You know?
Yes, tweaking.
Yeah. Didn't do nothing. And I thought, I got to get the hell out of here. They're going to open. And I happen to have keys and I'm looking through and I opened up this one door and it was a computer room. This is the Social Security office. You understand? Everything's in that computer room. All the numbers, everything. The police are there immediately. And I went across the room. I'm sure they saw me. And I went back in the bathroom. I climbed back up in the ceiling. And I hid up there for 2.5 days from the police. Well,
insanity.
a burglar friend of mine told me, I'll give you some advice if you're a burglar, or if you're in a burglar situation. He told me, he says, don't leave the building. You'll get caught leaving. He says, hide in the building. So I did. And I was able to get down between some plumbing walls in commercial buildings. The men's and women's bathrooms have a chaseway where the plumbing flushes into the wall, about a 2 foot, maybe 2.5 foot chaseway.
Just enough for about a human body.
Yeah, that only weighs 135 pounds,
Yeah.
and I
Just
look like a
whacked out.
skeleton,
Yeah.
And I was able to climb down in there, and they couldn't get in there. And I'd pass out, and I'd wake up, and I was in there for 2.5 days. I found out I didn't,
What a nightmare.
Well, I had some time to think. Now, all of my life, I've been hearing people tell me I was out of control. It didn't matter that they saw it. I had to see it.
Yeah.
And I saw it in the ceiling of the Social Security office. I saw it. I'm out of control. Even if I get out of here and don't go to jail, and I got fingerprints all over this place.
Yeah.
Even if I get out of here, it's only a matter of time before I catch another case and I'm going to go to prison.
And you're realizing this while you're in the walls.
I'm realizing this while I'm hiding in that ceiling. And I came to that conclusion that I was out of control, something that everybody else knew years earlier. But I saw it. And I got out of there and I was seen leaving, and there's a whole story around that, and I won't bore you with it. Doesn't really matter. But one of the workmen saw me, and he actually let me out because he thought I was a drunk locked into the foyer area.
And this is 2.5 days later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he grabs me, and I did an Academy Award act, and I got up and I stumbled like I was drunk, and I'm all dirty from climbing around the ceiling. And he walks, they're changing the locks on the side door. And the locksmith's got the door propped open, and this guy's walking with me, and I'm stumbling, pretending like I'm drunk. I'm not, of course. I just did this Academy Award act, and then he lets me go right out the door. Now, the problem I got is I'm doing business with Social Security office.
Yeah.
They know what I look like. This guy saw me. And I went home, and I shaved off my beard and cut my hair, and I'm in withdrawal because I'm coming off. When that lab blew up in Kentucky, a buddy of mine's buddy on the north side had bags of drugs, barbiturates, Tuinol, ambarbital, Seconal, codeine pills, Valium, bags of this stuff. He was so worried about it, he gives them all to me because one of his buddies got killed coming out of his apartment. He didn't want nothing to do with it, so he hands me all this stuff. So over that year, I was going up, down, sideways. I'm addicted to all this stuff.
Right.
Now I'm in withdrawal. I'm coming off of all this crap in the ceiling, and then I go back to where Pam is, and she don't want me around, and I'm in withdrawal. And I mean, I got major problems because it's no fun coming off all that stuff at the same time. 7 years of crystal meth, barbiturates, Valium, codeine. Oh yeah, nightmare. And I found out that I could get into a treatment center on a Rule 25 because I had to get off the streets. And I had to get all kinds of stuff out of my store because the guys who were hanging around there were going to steal everything.
Right.
So I'm trying to control all that too, plus get off the street and get into this place because I can't even get high anymore. I mean, everything is just, I can't get any kind of normalcy going. And I spent 3 weeks in that treatment center coming off all of those chemicals, just bouncing off the walls. But I came to a point, and the reason I'm telling you all this is because I came to a point where I realized that every time I solve a problem, it gets worse. It doesn't get better. And I became afraid of my own ability to deal with life at any level. I could not fix anything. I fix my relationship with Pam. She takes the kids and leaves. I fix my finances. I lose our house. I'm losing my business. I got to auction that off after I get out of the treatment center I ended up going into. And I'm frantic. I'm absolutely at my end. And I'm laying in bed and I'm looking up at the ceiling and I'm thinking about all this stuff. And I may very well go to prison because of the fingerprints all over the Social Security office. This is a federal charge,
Big time.
Yeah. You don't, when I was in there, you don't have to break in. You got to break out. You're going to trip an alarm going out,
Right.
So anyway, I'm thinking about all this stuff and how my family's gone and everything's gone. And I was in so much pain. I just couldn't take it. 35 years old. And the best I got is what I'm telling you. And I'm laying there with my arms out like this. And I came to a place, I said, I can't stand this. I'll do anything not to live this like this again. Anything. All my life, I've been in and out of courtrooms, in and out of jail cells, stealing, it's just a nightmare. I've been a taker all my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't do it anymore. I'll do anything. And as soon as I said that, it's like electricity came in the top of my head and went down through my feet. I don't know how else to describe this. One wave of electricity after another. It felt like a wave of it going through me. It was so intense, I could hardly bear it. It was that bad. Or good, I don't know what, but it was outrageous. I'm a militant atheist, so I don't believe God's doing
Right.
anything here. I mean, I'm the guy who gets a Jehovah's Witness in the door and starts slamming them, I'm not proud of that. I was aggressively mean to those people, man, But that's where I was at, see? So now this electricity, one wave after another is going through my body. I'm laying there. It's like somebody plugged me into the wall. All of a sudden, this peace just kind of washes over me. And it's so hard to describe this. With a sense of knowing that everything will be okay if I just stick to the commitment I made, which was I'll do anything. Nothing's okay. Everything's a mess. Nothing is okay. But I knew it was true. How would I know that? I don't know. I just knew it was true. Everything's going to be okay if you stick to that commitment you just made. That was what the thought came. The experience was opening up, getting bigger and bigger and bigger as I'm laying there. And all of a sudden, I get this. Jesus Christ. And I went, oh, no, not me. I can't do that, man. I am not going to be a Jesus freak. There's no way I can do that. And when I heard that, it was so shocking to me. I just went, whoa. And I said, no, kind of like that. And I pushed it out. And everything collapsed back into my body. And I was laying there in all of my pain
Again.
and fear again. And I wasn't experiencing it moments earlier. All of it was gone.
We picked this apart many of times that you've shared this story on the show, and we get a lot of people that check in, multiple people, spiritual experience, spirit. And we got people again doing that. And and like I said, in past shows, you guys can pull it up. It's in our libraries because you've shared this story before, and it's a very powerful one. And I believe that you're going to be moving forward with that story, telling us what's next. And I'm jumping the gun here. Besides the story itself, has this played a big role moving forward with everything that's about to be talked about?
Well, here, let me put it this way. That did not convert me.
There we go.
I was still an atheist at the end of that experience.
Mhm.
I knew something significant happened. I didn't know what it was. I rejected it. I didn't like it because of the Jesus thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I just rejected it. But as the days and weeks went by, I noticed that the compulsion to use was shut off like a switch.
From that moment of the
From
electricity.
that moment, I have never had trouble staying sober. I have had no urges, no desires, nothing. I have no desire to go back into that lifestyle. I don't mean just the using, I mean the illegal stuff. It was like everything was shut off, like somebody flipped a switch inside of me, but I was still an atheist. I entered into a commitment with God and I didn't believe in God. How do you do that? I said, I'll do anything. And I mean it. That happened 37 years ago. And I can tell you, I got a lot of history now, no urges, no nothing. AA never looked like a program of not drinking to me. Why? Because it wasn't. It was shut off. Why would I go to AA? Well, that's a good question. There were guys coming into the treatment center. When I drank, I was a guy's guy. We drank with guys. We'd get a keg of beer, take it down to the river, stand around the keg and cut each other down. That was a game, you know. I drank with guys. That was it was always like that. There were no women around us. They didn't want nothing to do with us. We were lunatics. I liked the men who came into that treatment center who were putting meetings on, and I connected with them at that level. And they were out putting on meetings and doing stuff in AA, and I just followed them in because they were coming into the treatment center I was in. The first 2 weeks I was in that treatment center, all I wanted to do was get out. The next 2 weeks, all I wanted to do was stay in because I knew I had a mountain of stuff that was following me. And I mean, I had a lot of illegal stuff that followed me into sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I tried to buy a house with a fake identity. I did that in sobriety. That's a whole nother story, you know. So I did play within my first month of sobriety with some of the illegal stuff, and I got to a bottom again with that. And then nope, I'm done. So when I came into AA, I was depressed. I had a lot of loss. Lost my family, lost my house, lost my money, lost my business, had no friends. Everything was stripped from me. You know, I heard the Christians say it. I hated them, so I never listened to them, of course, you know. But I heard them say things, and I had no religious training. I was raised in an atheist family, you know. And I'm unscathed by education too, you know, from third grade on. My lack of education, I don't think has hurt me none, to be honest with you. That's just my opinion today. Okay.
Well, today, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, you know, so I didn't have a lot of stuff to unlearn. Okay. And when I came into AA, I'm depressed because of all the loss. And I found that when I went out to put on some meetings with these guys, it'd lift me out of my depression. I'd been reading the big book a little bit. I'm in my first month of sobriety.
So question that came in was, by this time, had you done a first step yet?
Oh, I was devastated. Yeah.
With like you sat down with the
Not
sponsor?
consciously. No.
Okay. All right. No, keep
No.
going then.
Not consciously. My life experiences were so devastating, there was no question that I was out of control and that I couldn't solve my problems. That's the way the first step looks to me.
Right.
You know, I can't solve my problems. I'm unmanageable. So I'm depressed. Go out and do a 12-step meeting with these guys. List me up. Next morning, depressed again. That night I had another commitment. I'm going 10 meetings a week. Lifts me up again. Next morning, depressed again. And I went through my early sobriety doing 12-step work, not because I was trying to work a program, because it was helping me. There was nothing noble about what I was doing. It was pure self-interest. It wasn't selfish because I did want to help others because I was feeling better and I wanted to share what was working for me. Yeah. So that's what was going on. That's what was happening in my early sobriety. I didn't come to believe for some time. Okay. Somebody asked me one time years ago, how did you come to believe? Because she knew I was an atheist. And I didn't even think about it. It just came out of my mouth. I said, I took actions I didn't believe in, and I got results I couldn't deny.
I've said that so many times since you shared that their first time.
Yeah. I took actions. I did 12-step work, and then I started to write inventory. And I couldn't deny that it was working. Something was happening. Something was
Took
changing.
actions and things you didn't believe and got results you couldn't deny.
Right.
That's a mic drop right there. It's heavy, and it's the truth. How better could that be even with a lot of this stuff?
So I never found a concept of God.
It came through results.
It came through experiences. Look, solutions to problems started to unfold in ways I never could have imagined the solution coming from. I wanted that job. I didn't get it. A better job came. You know, the first time I had an experience like this, I was in that treatment center 3 weeks sober, had that experience, that thing, but I was feeling sorry for myself because Pam wouldn't come into the treatment center. See, and the family program stuff. And I really felt that our relationship would be helped if we could get together in the family program and start to deal with it, you know? Well, she wouldn't come in. And then I saw a guy go to family program on a Wednesday night, and he came back raging, just raging, because apparently they had identified the problem and it was him. And I think he left the treatment center over that. And I was sitting there looking at that, and I thought, now this is an atheist. I'm an atheist. And I'm looking at that, and I thought, you know, maybe it's not so bad that Pam isn't coming into the treatment program. Maybe I'm getting a break here. Now, this is an odd thought for a guy who's an atheist.
Right.
Because if you don't control it, who's going to control it? So clearly, there's something else happening here. And I actually was grateful for not getting what I wanted, her coming into the program.
And it was after seeing this
guy go crazy.
Right.
Yeah, he couldn't handle it. He went nuts. So I started to have experiences in my early sobriety of events like that, where solutions to problems started to come in ways I never could have imagined the solution coming from. And it was always good. Yeah. And it wasn't me doing it because I didn't understand it until it happened. Mm-hmm. You know, I've had so many experiences. You know, when I was in Mexico years ago, and this is probably 30 some years ago. There was a guy I met in a meeting, an Irishman. I love the Irish. They're just maniacs, you know. They really are. There's an old Irish saying, is that a personal fight or can anybody get in? You know, they like to fight. Yeah. Well, this guy Mauricio, they called him. He was about my age, and we hooked in the AA meeting, and he had trouble. He couldn't seem to stay sober. And I'm down there for a week, and then next year I go back, and I go every year. It's in Mazatlan. So I go back the next year, and Mauricio, he's drinking, and nobody knows where he is. They can't find him, and, you know, I just wanted to see my friend. You know, I wasn't going to go fix him. So the next year when I went down, I found out he was living in a very wealthy Mexican guy who went to AA meetings. He was an architect, and he was living in his place on the edge of the ocean, overlooking the ocean. Little rental units
Yep.
that this guy had. Beautiful spot, you know. And he says, and he wanted me to go see him because he wanted me to fix them.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I don't want to fix them. I'm not going there to do that. I'm going there just to see him. So me and my friend Francisco, we go over to see him because now at least I know where he is. And we knock on the door, and this beautiful senorita answers the door. And it's a little tiny place, but there's a big window facing the ocean, and the moon happened to be out there, hanging out there, the light shining off the ocean. And it was just a beautiful scene. And he's facing, his back is to the ocean. He's facing the door. As we walk in, he's sitting at a kitchen table, little place. And I'm just glad to see him. So we sit down and we start to talk a little bit. And he says something to me. He says, I'm so miserable. He says, I've got this beautiful senorita in the other room. You've seen her. He says, I've got this beautiful place to live. And there were a couple other things he said. I don't recall what it was. But he says, I can't enjoy any of it. And I looked at him and I thought to myself, I'd been to this one AA meeting for years in my early sobriety. And there was a little booklet called The Table Mate. And there was a quote out of this thing. They were AA quotes and things that we used to read in that meeting. And here's what one of the quotes was. And because of the circumstances, I shared it with Mauricio. I said, look, here's your option. If you're an alcoholic, your only option is total abstinence or chronic alcoholism with all the handicaps and penalties that implies. He looks up at me and he says, can I think about it?
That's a true alcoholic.
Yeah, like there's something in between. There's nothing in between. Okay. I think he's still thinking about it because he disappeared and I don't know whatever became of him. Probably dead, who knows?
Yeah. We know the alternative.
But you see, this is the problem when you cannot admit that you can't fix your life or solve your problems. So you have to be devastated. Now, Bill, in the 12 and 12, writes something in step 1, which is just, it's brilliant. You know what he wrote here? He says, it's right in the first paragraph. He says, step 1, who cares to admit complete defeat? Practically no one, of course. Now, I know this one really well. Every natural instinct cries out against the idea of personal powerlessness. Every natural instinct cries out against the idea of personal powerlessness. I know that one real well. He says, it is truly awful to admit that, glass in hand, we have warped our minds into such an obsession for destructive drinking that only an act of providence can remove it from us.
An act of providence?
God, an act of God can remove it from us. That's where these guys were at. They could not solve their problem.
Right.
Like myself. Do you know, by the way, that today is Bill Wilson's anniversary of his death?
His death date, huh?
Yeah, January 24th, 1971. Today's, 54 years since he died. His writing is just tremendous. Then you come up against the second to the last paragraph on step 1 in the 12 and 12. He says, why all this insistence that every AA must hit bottom first? The answer is that few people will sincerely try to practice the AA program unless they have hit bottom. For practicing AA's remaining 11 steps means the adoption of attitudes and actions that almost no alcoholic who is still drinking can dream of taking. No, they just won't do it. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of people sober won't do it too.
Right.
So he goes on, he says, who wishes to be rigorously honest and tolerant? You think I wanted to be rigorously honest and tolerant?
No.
You could see me do it and I'd lie about it. I would.
Yeah.
You could see me do it and I'd deny it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't interested in being rigorously honest and tolerant. Who wants to confess his faults to another
camera. Yeah, people like when people can tune in and listen for an hour.
Right.
This is the difference. And I know where Paul's coming from on this because he wants it to be something for I always call them clients, but the meeting goers, something for Will Work for Recovery, like an event. And he said that before. No one wants to sit out there and watch a show.
No.
Well, that's okay.
You know, I met-
There we go.
I-
Hey, we're back in business. What the hell did I do?
This is the difference. And I know where Paul's coming from on this.
Oh, yep, now I'm talking shit. All right. We're back in business. Welcome back to Attitude for Gratitude. And now we're going to start getting an echo because that should have picked it up. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Are we back?
Feedback?
Are we back? And we're back. Let's do it. So, Rick, where you were at, do you remember I said, don't forget your thought?
I don't know.
Well, I said to you, I remember the question. Could somebody have explained to you, Rick, if you do these things, your life's going to get like this? Would
Okay.
that have worked?
So I'm with these old timers at 2218.
Okay.
Okay. And this was an interesting experience too. They were all the second generation. They grew up the second generation of AA people. They were 20, 30 years sober when I got sober 37 years ago, you know. And I'm sitting in a room with them and they're nothing funny about my life. My life's an absolute disaster.
Yep.
I'm weeks sober and I'm depressed. And they start going around the room telling stories about things from their own life. These things are killing me, okay? Loss of my children, loss of my house, loss of my business. Yet this guy tells a story and he's lighthearted.
And talking about dark stuff too, right?
Yeah, oh
And
yeah.
lighthearted.
He's sharing his own experience, very similar. He knew what I was going through. Then the next guy tells another story, similar, only different, you know, and I relate to that because that one's killing me too. And he's lighthearted too, and it goes around the room like that. And I'm looking at them and I thought, how the hell did you get from where I am, the pain I'm in,
To where you're at.
to where you're at? And I wanted what they had in the worst way. And they said, open the big book and do it.
Oh, so
Just do it.
someone telling you,
They just said, they advised you to just do it. Do the big book. They didn't spoon feed it. I didn't have a sponsor spoon feeding this stuff. I let the big book sponsor me through it. And that's what the big book is for, you know.
Mhm.
That's exactly what it was for.
They sent it out because they could send people.
Well,
They
yeah,
didn't have enough people, so they
Yeah.
sent out the big book.
yeah. So I started doing what they did. And you know, it's interesting as I look back on that, because you know what they were doing? They were demonstrating the third step prayer right in front of my face.
Mhm.
say that one more time.
They were demonstrating the third step prayer. What does the third step prayer say? It says, relieve me of the bondage of self, right, in the middle of it, that I may better do your will. And then it says, take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of God's power, God's love, God's way of life. See, they were actually doing that right in front of my face. And I didn't equate it with the third step prayer, but it impressed me so much. And later on, I looked back and I thought, these guys were actually demonstrating it right in front of me.
Right in front of you.
Yep. I didn't think of it in those terms. So all I did was I started to do this stuff. You know, I started to do it. You know, you guys may not know, you know what the second hardest thing in the world is to do? Is to change. You know that?
What's the first?
To not change.
Huh?
Amen. Amen to that.
You know what? You guys don't hear it, but the audience just heard big clap noises. That's good.
That's it.
Yeah.
Button over there.
I got sound effects.
You know, guys, I had an alcoholic sponsor. Did you guys have an alcoholic sponsor?
I did.
You mean an active alcoholic sponsor, or just he was
Yeah.
identified as an alcoholic?
No, an alcohol. He taught me how to drink. Oh, yeah. There was a guy named Dallas,
I don't know Dallas.
Dallas Fremont.
I think, is he the same Dallas that's everywhere?
No, not from.
He's since passed.
He was 20 years older than I am. I met him when I was a teenager and I was drinking a lot and I was stealing all the time. And he would order things from me. I'd go out and steal it and sell it to him.
You were a booster.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was stealing out of cars and whatever, see? Well, Dallas, being 20 years older than I am, as I grew older and started screwing around with property, he was in the real estate business, buying and selling properties. So him and I were drinking together. He's 20 years older. He taught me how to drink.
Okay, I see what
You
you're
see?
saying. Yep.
You really need to have an alcoholic sponsor, see, to learn how to really drink. And
Really
what I mean
drink.
by that is, now who would have known this? You go out to a bar, now back when we were drinking, and this is a long time ago, 40 some years ago, really, you could go into a bar and they didn't have beer on tap to sell glasses of beer in the hard liquor bars.
Yeah.
They had beer on tap for a chaser.
A little snit.
It was a snit. They called it a snit.
That's right.
So you get a brandy and you could get a snit with it. Well, I didn't know any of this, so Dallas showed me that.
Gotcha.
Then I found out, listen, but you don't know this, that you can get a snit with a Bloody Mary.
I always thought it was the other way around.
Who'd have thought? You order a Bloody Mary, you can actually get a chaser of beer with it. That was part of the deal, see? So you need an alcoholic sponsor to teach you the ropes, see?
I'm getting the correlation here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you also need a sponsor to not be an alcoholic and active. I say active, but
But I didn't meet my sponsor till after I wrote inventory. I didn't need Joseph to teach me inventory.
he didn't.
No,
I never knew.
I
that.
brought the big book to him. He was 23 years sober when I met him.
So let me get this right. And I know we're starting to talk a couple months ahead here on steps, but you read the big book solo. You're
I
going
just
to
did
mean. What do you mean you just did? You had.
I just opened chapter 5 up and I did what it said.
That's how you did the 4-step.
Yeah.
And now you shared about this at the beginning, and I think it's relevant to bring it up now. Is you explained that you do this 4-step workshop, and what you've noticed out there in the community is, with good intentions, people are trying to change it or
Improve it.
improve it, but it
Improve
doesn't need improving.
No.
Yeah, you didn't catch that at the beginning, Jeff, but he came in and he said, "What? Just go ahead and kind of reshare that about what you've been seeing with people doing this 4-step and trying to."
Well, I've seen it. I've seen all these different forms and different
Right.
that people are handing out, and it's like,
Right.
just do it the way. It's not that complicated.
No, in fact, it's so simple, it can't work.
It's so simple, it can't work.
So I didn't need my sponsor to teach me the big book. I brought the big book to him. I'd already done the work. I'd already made the amends. I'd already been working with that. I was 6 months sober when I met him. I didn't need him for that. We came together. He gave me a psychological commitment, an older man, 25 years older than I am, with a younger man. And we hung out and we talked and we challenged each other. If you're not challenging your sponsor, you're getting brainwashed. You should be questioning him. You should be challenging what he says. He may be wrong. Joseph was wrong sometimes. But that's the way you work things out. You fight with each other. Otherwise, what are you going to do? Walk around and go, "Yes, master. I'll do everything you say, master."
But I've seen
What a
that. I
bunch of
think that
nonsense.
happens a lot.
Of course
I
it
think
does.
that happens a lot, and whether it's a sponsor with ego or whether it's just this, I've seen that since the day I came in. It was like a relationship like this.
Never was like that with my sponsor. You know what he said to me? I was doing a talk in Ukraine last summer.
Okay.
Okay. A Zoom thing.
Yeah.
And it was a bunch of treatment centers and some AA groups.
Okay.
on.
Yep.
And they're on this, and I'm talking like we're doing this. See?
Mhm.
And I'm not a mainstream normal AA guy.
Nope.
Okay, I'm not.
But you stand on what you know and what has.
Well, my experience is on the basis, on the
Right.
basics
Right.
of the big book and, yeah. But I'm not, I don't go along with all the stuff that goes on in the fellowship. There's a fellowship and then there's the program.
Yes.
Okay.
I love this take on it.
Yeah, So anyway, I'm doing this talk in Ukraine and this woman has got to translate what I'm saying. And I'm saying some things that are a little outside the boundaries. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, and you mean against popular belief? Or,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Outside the bound, not of AA,
Yeah,
but
no, you stick right to it. That's what I love about this.
Yeah. So I'm sharing this stuff with her. She's getting kind of shook up because she can't just let it go in one ear and out the other. She has to stop it between her ears and carry it forward by translating it. So she's got to understand what I'm saying to
Right.
bring it forward, see? And some of this stuff is disturbing her. Now, the reason I'm telling you all this, I said something to her, and I didn't say this. We were talking about the sixth step, and I said to her, I said, my sponsor told me many times. He says, I never saw anything but good in you. I said, well, ask around. We can help you with that, No, but that's what he said. And he said it many times to me. He didn't look at what was wrong with me. He looked for the truth in me, not the false.
Right.
You see, when you're looking at the false in somebody, you're looking through your own ego. You're seeing your stuff in them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You pointed this out about theft in early
Oh, yeah.
recovery. For
Well,
a lot
we'll
of
get
us.
into all
Yes.
this as we go through this weeks of
Yep,
this
yep.
stuff,
Yep.
But he said, so I said this to this woman and she's clearly disturbed by it, and she's set it on, carried it forth.
Yep.
And she says, but that's not what we're doing. She says, we look at our sponsees' character defects and then try and help them with them. I said, that's not spiritual.
We're playing God.
That's not spirituality. Spiritual healing is overlooking error, not focusing on the error and trying to fix it.
You hearing this, Jeff?
I am.
I think a lot of people need to hear. No, I just wasn't trying to. I wanted to
No, no,
repeat
no,
this, but
no,
I think a lot of people need to hear what you're saying. I want you to repeat that, please, Rick. Just repeat what you just said.
Spiritual healing is not focusing on error, it's overlooking the error for the truth in the person and joining at the truth. Now, don't we do that in AA rooms?
Supposed to.
A newcomer walks into an AA meeting, okay? Everybody in his life hates him. Nobody wants him around. He walks into the AA room and we all want him there.
Yeah.
What happens? He feels loved. He feels the connection. Why? Because we forgot to judge him. Give us a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Then we'll judge him, okay? But at that moment, he felt the healing. How many times have you heard that from a guy at a lectern in a conference? I felt like I was home. I felt the first AA meeting. Why? Because it was the lack of judgment, not the judgment.
Yeah. So why are we carrying on with judgment when we start sponsoring I made a leap there, but
It's just wrong. That's all. It's just wrong.
we were talking about this a couple years ago about how we've noticed, and I couldn't say how I've noticed, but you guys were sharing about it. It's how you've seen a lot of this, over time. You guys been in the rooms quite a lot longer than I, and you've seen a lot, but how you've seen a lot of that changing from a sponsee relationship of a hierarchy type deal. And,
Right.
I just like how you point that out. The character
I've
defects.
always
I really
spoke
do.
out against this. This is something. In
And that's
fact,
against popular belief in a lot of circles.
oh, of course, this is blasphemy.
But it should be. It's not.
But you know what? I've been sober too long to give a shit. I don't care what people think anymore. I used to care.
Yeah.
But things have changed. I don't care.
I love that.
I got to be true to what I believe is the reality here. See?
I want to get to that point.
So there was something I was going to share. I forgot what it was.
I mean, my big mouth.
No, it's
I know there are some things, to me, I feel that's very, very important that we share that and we start getting that type of stuff out there. These things that are against popular beliefs to me, it's bullshit because that's why did it become this new belief, this new society or whatever we're in with this. Yeah, I got to be
Well,
careful.
some
with
of us
those
get
around.
real smart, you see, and we think we're junior psychiatrists and we're going to fix people and stuff. That is not the process of inventory, nor is it the process of inventory. We're going to look at the stories we tell ourselves that justify our anger.
Yep.
That's the resentments. I would never tell you your anger is not justified. It's perfectly justified, and you got a story to justify it. My question is your story accurate? And then you might say, yeah, it's accurate, and I'll tell you all about it. And I'd say, great, that's the first 3 columns on page 65.
And I know we'll share, and tonight's not the night we're gonna, but you share a story about money on a dresser and but
Oh, yeah.
this ties into what you're saying is, and I've regurgitated this ever since the first time you shared it on the show is your anger is justified by the story you're
Of
telling
course.
yourself.
Of course.
But the key is what you're telling yourself correct?
Yeah, is it accurate?
Is it accurate?
Yeah, there's a grain of truth in every story, but we're going to ask God to reveal something to us in a 4th column because it's a 4-column inventory. That's another story.
Yeah.
We'll get into
Oh, we
that.
got so much. I'm so glad you're back. TM, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, we're getting. What do we want to touch on? What kind of one last type of thing you want to touch on before we wrap up,
I don't care.
boys? Well, now that we got 2 guys in the room, Jeff, Ray, you guys want to ask our speaker, Rick, or our step 1 guy, Rick, anything? Jeff, Ray.
What are the first things you say to somebody who comes to your 4-step meeting?
What's the first thing I say?
What's the first thing you bring up to help them?
I talk about honesty. I read out of chapter 5 at the beginning where they talk about honesty and honesty with yourself, not honest with everybody else. And then talking about self-deception and what that like. Just to start to get them to, whoa, this is different, This isn't, we're not going to look at an inventory and then judge ourselves and hate ourselves. That's not what the process is.
So you're teaching them to look more objective unto themselves.
Look at yourself without judgment. And that the big book does it because Bill puts it in the framework of a business inventory. Fact-finding, fact-facing, truthful, not moral. That word moral, and again, we'll talk about this when we get into the inventory stuff, because that word moral, Bill got in a lot of trouble by taking that out of the process in the big book. He took it out on page 64. We're gonna take a fact-finding, fact-facing, truthful inventory. He doesn't say moral. Why? It smacks of judgment.
Right.
A business takes an inventory without judgment. It's a broken chair. Get rid of it promptly and without regret. It's not a bad chair.
Right. It always makes me think of when you explain to me saying my part.
Yeah, that's all bullshit too.
Yeah.
There's
That's why I love Rick. I love when these boys come in and they share. They've helped save my life and bring me to a different level of looking at self. It really has.
I'll read you something that somebody sent me. Now this came to me after I did a talk somewhere. This is years ago. I don't know who sent it. I don't know where it came from. But here's what it says.
If you talking close.
Okay. It came in the mail, anonymous.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
Yep.
just showed up. And it had to do probably with that spiritual experience that I had, is what she's referencing. And she said, I think it's a she. I think I know who sent it, but I don't know this for sure. It says, the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. The moment one definitely commits himself, then providence moves too. Then God moves too. Commit, what'd I do? I'll do anything. I'm not living this way anymore. I'll do anything. I definitely committed myself. The moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance which no man could have dreamed would have come his way. Isn't that what I was talking about? How my atheism started to break?
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly what it was. This thing just shows up at my door one day. 35 years ago, maybe, you know. I've been carrying it around ever since. But how true that is. See, I made the commitment.
Yeah.
And then I followed it with action. And I never looked back. I never looked back. I've done so much right by mistake, it's almost hard to imagine. Not because I knew what I was doing. I didn't understand. I just did it. I just did the action. I took the action and had the experience.
Yeah, I love that. I took some actions and things I didn't believe and got results I couldn't deny.
Yeah.
How true is that statement? If you've been doing this long enough, it's a very powerful statement. So, name of this show is Attitude for Gratitude. Jeff, you didn't say much tonight.
Well,
All right, no, I know we're here. I get it.
I'm
So
listening.
no, and I wasn't busting hump. I'm getting to the closing part. So get pretty damn close to that mic and tell us who you are and tell us what you're grateful for.
my name's Jeff. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
Grateful to be sitting in a room here with some guys who have done the deal. Grateful for another day sober. Say, Rick, I met you. Well, I started the Fourth Step workshop down at 2218 many years ago, but you came and spoke at the retreat. I was there in 2018. And I remember that you changed my whole attitude towards the inventory process, because you said it wasn't, yes, the mechanics were important, but the most important thing was seeing how these things, these defects, how it caused me to show up in other people's lives going forward, and so I just wanted to thank you for that, and I need to come and revisit, come and check you out.
I'm down. We're having some fun. You know?
Thanks for sharing your story tonight. That was really
Some of it.
really powerful.
That was a little bit of your story.
Yeah.
Little bit. Jeffy, thank you. I appreciate you, brother. I love you. Thanks for always coming on. Ray, name of this show is Attitude for Gratitude. What's your gratitude look like tonight?
Well, basically, I'm grateful for my cat because I get a lot of attention from my cat. I kind of live alone, so I'm grateful for my cat.
Heck yeah. I'm grateful for you being here. Rick? Well, I'm glad this is the start of a many months ahead of us getting back on this same thing. I'm grateful for you. So tell me what your gratitude looking like tonight, Rick.
Well, Tim, I thought Jesse and I talked, whether we were going to do this again. And then I just thought, why wouldn't I? And, but I do whatever I do around AA, I do it out of gratitude for what's been given me. And I was thinking about my sponsor. I was working over by where he used to live, and I spent hours and hours on his front porch with him. We were listening to tapes and arguing about things, and it was just, we were together for 33 years. He was 25 years older now. And I got a lot of gratitude for him. I've got a lot of gratitude for everybody who's in my life today, And I do a gratitude list. I think that way when I'm in meditation, coming out of meditation. And I do this gratitude thing, and I always thank you for this person, for Joseph, or whatever. But then I always say at the end of it, thank you for my life just the way it is. Not with her, not with this different. I didn't believe that at first when I started doing it years ago. But the more I did it, the more I realized that life's great just the way it is. And then I started just to accept what is, because it's all good. It's all good. Doesn't look good sometimes at first glance, but it's all good. Some of the best things that have happened to me have been the worst.
Like divine providence.
I like that. Life is good just the way it is.
Yeah.
Some of the worst things that have happened to me has been the best.
Yeah.
That's a power one. In the moment, that's not as easy to accept.
But you can always see it, and Bill Wilson talked that way. You know, that there was always good that came from
Pain.
some negative
Yeah.
experience.
I appreciate you, boys. I'm gonna wrap this here. I'm grateful for Rick, you know I am. So this is the part of the show where Tim does a little wrap up here. Thank you all three of you guys for coming on. Rick, as always, thank you. Yeah, I was a little, not worried, but you know, since the show moved over to We'll Work from 2218 and we switched format, I didn't have any more guests on, and it just, the whole format changed. And the biggest part I missed about the show was these shows. It was the one constant we had. And when it was with Tad, when it was with Elena, when it was with whatever co-host it, for me, it was a constant. I knew we were going to come on and we were going to hear a lot of solution. To me, that's what the taking steps and things I didn't believe and got results I couldn't deny. There's so many things that you've said that sound good, but also they applied. They not just sounded good, but they applied to my life. And it's things like that I can just remain grateful for. So I'm really looking forward to what the future holds. Also, I start my mornings with that. Thanks for the movement in my body and the breath in my lungs. And, you know, I think I want to start adding, I don't know if it's positive affirmations, but repeating some things, speaking them into existence, reminding myself to love myself. You start saying that enough, it starts becoming what it is for me. All right, you guys, 2218 Wednesdays at 6:30. Start checking out the By the Book 4-Step Workshop. And you saw this card that I put up, www.aabythebook.org, Rick B. and Bob J.
That's a whole workshop online with Bob, and it's worth hearing him.
Pretty good stuff. So, and as always, they'll be back next month. I'm over the next 2 weeks, next two shows, I'll be giving you guys a detailed breakdown of schedules and who's the next guest. And we haven't locked down if we're going to do the third Friday. It's going to be a fluid situation moving forward for the first few months with Rick and Jesse shows. Rick's locked in now. I got him locked in online. So you got to show up once a month for me. Whoever you bring, as long as you bring that experience of yours. So again, if you're out there tonight, you're struggling, please reach out. We've talked about multiple things tonight and multiple different things have been posted. There's phone numbers going across the bottom of the screen. Utilize those phone numbers. Please reach out, get to a meeting. You've heard us talk about 2218. We'll Work for Recovery has structured meetings. They have recovery meetings here. Address here. I put it up. I had the wrong address for a while, but it's 4026 Washington Avenue North. Every night, 7 p.m., it's a recovery meeting. Every morning at 6:30 a.m., it's a structured AA meeting. And at the beginning of the show, I did talk about other facilities. We brought up Fridley Allano and New Hope Allano. We don't gatekeep recovery around here. If you know about a good meeting, put it on the comments section. If there's something you want the listeners to know about, put it up. We don't gatekeep meetings. So share about that good stuff happening out there. Everyone who checked in and interacted, we're grateful for you too. Again, if you're struggling, please reach out. You are worth this life of recovery. Get after it. You heard 4 people tonight talk about good stuff, and well, one person really talked about some good stuff. Sorry about the hiccup on audio, but it's progress, not perfection. We're going to get her right. All right. We love you. Till next week. Thank you.
We love you.
Goodbye.